Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
Did you watch the debate on Tuesday night? Wasn't it the most riveting thing that you've ever seen? Even the undercards, as they're calling them, I call them the kiddies at the kiddie table, but wasn't it just amazing? Can you believe that you spent all of that time glued to the TV watching these people? Yeah, me either. It was painful. Starting out in the very beginning with the 4 candidates who I just kept asking myself, why are they here? They know that their chances are about 1 in a million, that they're going to move up. And I know it's early, and I know people keep saying it's early, anything can happen, and I get that, and I do believe that. But these 4 people, I mean, come on. Pataki, Huckabee, Santorum, and Lindsey Obnoxious Graham. It was really quite painful to hear them. I'm not sure about anything that they said, to be quite honest, and I did listen. I sat there. Nothing was memorable other than the fact that Lindsey Graham knows, I'm convinced of this, he knows he's there as a plant just to kind of distract from what's going on, that he doesn't really have a chance, that somebody just said, okay, Lindsey, we want you to stay in as long as you can, to kind of confuse people, to kind of take away from the other people, be the comedic relief, whatever the case may be. All he could talk about was ISIL, which, Mr. Graham, it's not ISIL. Let's not insult Israel. It's ISIS or IS. And all he could also talk about was the Obama agenda, which is to take out Assad, and he's very much in favor of that. Going into Syria, I believe he said ground troops. Pretty sure he did. That's, who knows? Gosh. Gave me such a headache watching that I just wanted it to end. It's one of those things. He's like, gosh, just give me something to make it end. But the one thing that I noticed about Lindsey Graham, and it was just the weirdest thing. He would, when the cameras would kind of pan away from him, but still be on him a little bit, he would be looking up in the air, looking all around, as if maybe looking for the cab that was coming to pick him up, that he just called for a few minutes ago. Okay, well, I'll just wait this out until my cab comes, and then I just want to get out of here. I mean, it would have been comical if it weren't so real, but he literally acted as though he didn't know why he was there amongst these people that didn't deserve to be there, that were a waste of his time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have Santorum, who a couple times winked at Lindsey Graham, and I'm sure that's just because Santorum is a nice guy. And I know last time he came out of nowhere and kind of, rose to the top in the last, 6.5 years ago, which seems like a lifetime ago. And I think he believes that he's going to do that again this time. Could he possibly do that? Well, anything is possible. So he could. Is it likely? I don't think so, because we have some really good candidates that people can kind of look at and make a decision from. It's not like last time where you had John McCain, Mitt Romney, whoever else was in the fray. And this was probably the first time. And I think Santorum, I can't even remember, but I think Santorum was in the first election with McCain and Mitt Romney and Huckabee. It's been so long ago, I don't remember. It may just have been the last time, but I don't even know. I don't even care anymore. I mean, it's too much, too painful to remember all of this stuff. Relive the last 6 years. And then there's Huckabee, who I will have to say, a couple of times, even though that, Huckabee is a progressive, and he really is, and I know he tries to put himself out as an evangelical, and I think that he is, but he's got some pretty progressive leanings as well that would deter me from voting for him as a serious candidate. But he did come out a couple of times with some, it sounded really good. It really did. Sounded like he was intelligent, had common sense about, the Syrian refugees coming here, how we should handle that, common sense just about pretty much everything, even in regards to, should we spy on everybody or not, that kind of thing. So, he always really does sound good, but you have to keep in the back of your mind that he has come out and said some pretty derogatory things about Republicans, which, quite honestly, I have too. In the way they handle things, but I'm not running for president. And the kind of things that I've said is not what he said. I mean, it's been a little bit different for him and a little bit worse on his part. You can look it up. It's not worth talking about here. But he also was in favor of Common Core and even in favor of sort of, changing the name to trick people into not knowing that they were still dealing with Common Core. So that I can't forget. Now moving on to the big table with the 9 remaining. And it's kind of interesting that they're 9. And if you look into biblical teachings or anything like that, 9 is the number of judgment. And I think it's pretty interesting because people say, well, America is going to be under, judgment by God at this point. And so here we have 9 candidates. Coincidence? Maybe so. I don't know. But it was interesting to see everybody backstage. Everybody was together backstage waiting to come on except for Trump and Cruz, which I found a little interesting. I can see that, Trump wouldn't want to be standing with the rest of the people because that's kind of who he is. But it was a little odd not to see Ted Cruz standing with people before he went out. But that's just, it's an observation. It may mean absolutely nothing. And then when they came out, I guess, the fun really started. And it too was too long for me for 2 hours. And I understand you have to have that when you have that many people. And that's another reason why we really need to start weeding these people out. Who do I mean by we? Jeb Bush, for one. My gosh, John Kasich for another. I think at this point, Rand Paul, while he may be saying some good things, it's really, I don't know, he's kind of disappeared in all of this. And it's interesting. There are still people that are hopeful that he's going to make a comeback, that he's going to surge. But I don't see it. But again, it's early. But he doesn't have too much of a personality. It always seems that he wants to sort of attack people, kind of smirk and walk away. Not to say that he doesn't have some good things to help America, but I just don't think people are really listening. Now, the millennials at one point really loved him, so I don't know what happened there. I haven't heard too many millennials saying, oh, we've got to have Rand Paul. I mean, I do know that there are certain millennials who are still on board, but they don't seem to be the majority of millennials at this point. Either that or the millennials are staying very quiet about, what's happening and what their thoughts are in regards to who they want for president. And I would say last night with Donald Trump, Donald was, I think for him, kind of subdued. And I don't know if that's because, he's riding at like a 42% right now, and Jeb Bush is at 3%, which was great, I think, in him pointing that out to Jeb when Jeb started to become a little like, I'm going to get you, Donald. It was laughable. I'm sorry, but it was laughable watching Jeb Bush try to, go up against Donald Trump. It's like, come on, Jeb, just give it up, focus on yourself. Try to stay in the race if you can. But in my opinion, get out. Jeb is at 3%. Time to go. But Donald was a little bit more subdued than he usually is. And I know that at times when he would try to say something or put somebody else down, there was some boos in the crowd, which we haven't heard in the past. And now I don't know if those people in the crowd were plants or if they were just regular people, and I have no idea. But that was new. And at one point there was a heckler in the back. You could hear him talking, kind of interrupted Trump. And the moderators kept saying, go ahead, Mr. Trump, go ahead. Well, it's kind of hard to do that, when somebody's standing in the back saying something. And it was something, derogatory to Donald Trump. As far as doing well or not doing well, for me personally, I didn't hear anything new. And I didn't hear any more definition of what Donald Trump plans to do. That kind of concerns me. There's no specifics. It's just generalizations. And I think at this point we need to have some more specifics. So I hope that he comes out and starts doing that. I do think some of the, attacks that he's done in the past, while it stirs up the crowd a little bit, it definitely didn't seem to work during the debates. I think it's something where, if you go to a campaign stop, it's something that the crowd is expecting and they want to hear. But when you get into some type of decorum where it's a little bit different, people are sort of tiring of hearing that same type of rhetoric. Now, Ted Cruz, I thought, did really well. But it's so hard to tell how the public is really reacting to him. Ted is a very tell it like it is, straightforward guy who doesn't mince words. But he doesn't have all the emotion and everything else like Donald Trump. He has a personality, but it's not, the same as Donald Trump. It doesn't stand out as much as Donald Trump. So it's hard to tell, what he's doing with the public and what the public's thinking of him. Now, Marco Rubio, of course, had to attack Ted Cruz. And Marco did it wanting to confuse everyone, and he really did. He tried to say that Cruz was for illegal immigration, and then talked about the visas, which they're total opposites. They're two different things. And he also talked about Ted Cruz wanting to bring people here on green cards. Well, this country has always done that, and it's not about illegal immigration. It is about legal immigration, and this country has a history of doing that in the past. I mean, it's something that we've always done. Not illegal immigration, but legal immigration and handing out green cards. So I think Rubio intentionally wanted to confuse people. And I think Ted talked about, how he was wrong, how Rubio was incorrect in what he said, and how Rubio was trying to confuse people and make them think something that wasn't true. And I know there are people out there who really support Marco Rubio and just love him. I just don't know how you do that when you know that Marco was part of the Gang of Eight. You know that Marco is really more of an establishment guy than anything else. Every time you see him, I've talked about it before. He's in the Gang of Five now, along with McCain and other people. Once again, he just sides with the establishment. He talks a good game, but when it comes right down to it, he's an establishment guy. And I don't know what it is about him, but the more I listen to him, the more I watch him, the more I watch his mannerisms. It's like watching a teenager. And I can't even tell you exactly why, but he has this immaturity about him. And it's more like, well, I've practiced for this speech tonight, and I'm going to tell you what I want you to hear, not what's actually true. Now, I have nothing to base this on. This is only my opinion. But I'm not enamored by him. I am not sitting here looking at him and going, oh, he's the answer. I don't think that he is. I don't trust him either. And he talks a good game, and I know people may like him because, oh, great, he's Hispanic, and we can have the first Hispanic president, whatever. What about Ted Cruz? He's also Hispanic, but nobody likes to mention that. And I should say here, one of the things that kind of concerns me about Donald Trump is the fact that the media is paying so much attention to him, more so than any other candidate. He gets about 50% more attention than the other candidates. That concerns me because we have a liberal media. And when they are concerned about a candidate, they just don't give them any coverage. But yet, look how much coverage that Donald Trump is getting. What does it all mean? And I know that people who are really rooting for Donald Trump may not like me saying that, but it's something we do have to look at and evaluate and question. They gave all the attention to Obama when he was running because that's who they wanted in. Are they giving all the attention to Donald Trump because they think that Hillary can beat him and they are hoping that Donald just looks like a jerk and that people will eventually get turned on? I don't know. But there's something going on there, and we can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to look at that and evaluate that and see what's going on. I'm tired of, I'm not one to sit back and not say something because I know that it may be unpopular. I want to, and I always do, I stand for truth, and we have to bring the truth out there. We may have disagreements on it, but we still need to look at it and see if there is something that we really need to look at. Is there an issue? Now, again with Bush, I think Bush just needs to move it along. He's already lost favor with the establishment. The only reason that he's still there, quite frankly, in my opinion, is because he is a Bush. And we've had, 2 President Bushes, and there's this sort of dynasty, just like with the Clintons, and people aren't willing to say, okay, Jeb, get out. get out. You're boring. We don't like you. You haven't said anything important. You can't lead, on and on and on. I think now the establishment has really got their eye on Marco Rubio. They know it's someone that they can mold into a real establishment guy and have him come over 100% to their side. I really do think that's what's happening. And as far as Carly Fiorina, Carly has lost her zeal and her zest with the American public. In the very beginning, I really liked her. I loved how she would come out and she was direct, spoke her mind, sounded very knowledgeable. And I still believe that she is all of those things, but she is a one note. She comes out last night and talks about, well, I was a secretary at HP and then I became, the head of HP and I this, I that, I speak my mind. I'm responsible. Nobody else has ever run a business here, and I'm the greatest of all. She talks about having children and her fight with breast cancer. Well, all of those are important. It's the only thing that she comes out with, and maybe it's the only thing that she has. You have to keep adding to yourself and who you are. And I will have to say again, I'm a little bit disappointed in Donald Trump in that that's all he says. And anytime you ask him something about what he's going to do or why he didn't do this or why he did do this or whatever the question may be, a lot of times his answer is, well, I've run a business. Great. Okay? That's really great. But we need to hear more substance from all of the candidates. What are you going to do exactly? And I know that people don't have to give up their full strategies. I know it's early and they may not want to reveal a lot, but some of the same old arguments or some of the same old statements aren't making it. And it's the same with Ben Carson. People have really lost interest, for the most part, with Ben Carson. Ben is a very smart man, obviously, and he, I think, would bring a lot to any administration. I don't know that he would make a good president, and that's not because of anything other than I don't know enough about him. I still can't get to know him. I still can't get a feel for what he would be like. There are times when I go, wow, he's really right on, he understands. But on the other hand, he'll make statements that I just I don't understand where he's going, or the next day he comes back and he reverses what he says or tries to tell people, well, no, this is what I really meant, and it just doesn't work. And I think the fact, he is very quiet, and people are looking for a loud person with a big stick. They really are at this point. Trump more fits that bill. Ted Cruz more fits that bill than, say, a Ben Carson, who has to explain, as he did on Tuesday, just because I'm quiet doesn't mean that I can't handle the job. Well, and even said that, I don't just talk, I walk the walk, basically. And I can say that he does in some areas, especially as a neurosurgeon, but I don't know what those areas are as far as a candidate for president, or what he would do that would convince me that this is the guy for the job. I haven't seen that. And I think that's a pretty big problem at this point. I kind of see right now the election coming down to Cruz, Rubio, Trump, and I'm trying to think maybe who that fourth person would be. I hate to say it, but maybe Jeb Bush, because I want to keep him in. Chris Christie, could possibly be one. Chris Christie, again, he's one of those people. He sounds really good when he's up there. And, I used to be a former federal prosecutor. He said that about 15,000 times. But he sounds really good and knowledgeable and strong, and calling Obama names. It's like the first time I've heard that. I don't know what happened to the bromance, but maybe that's all gone, especially when you're trying to run for the office of president. So, but you have to remember that Chris Christie is a total progressive. And if you go back and look at things that he's done, he's a progressive. He's one of those, too, that talks a big talk, talks a big game, but doesn't really follow through the way you think he's going to. And we have so much of that in the GOP. Paul Ryan now, who's basically dumped a lot of information last night while we were all sitting and watching the campaign, that not wanting to tell us, once again, he's going along with the Democrats and what they want and how much money they want in this omnibus bill and all that. So I'm pretty tired of that. I'm done with that. I really want somebody who says what they mean and means what they say. I don't know if you can find that person. A lot of people think that's Donald Trump. I'm not 100% convinced. I'm just not. I want to see more from him. I want to see specifics. I want to hear more and see more, rather than just in general, well, we're going to do this, we're going to blow them away. Okay, how are we going to do that? Tell me how you're not going to fall into the same trap as everyone else. Now, he's pretty much given us good examples of why he's not going to do that. But for me, I need him to go further. I need to know that he understands things in America. When you're a president, it's one thing. When you're a businessman, it's a totally different thing. It really is. I want to know that he understands the politics of things and how things are run, the business part of it, the diplomatic part of it, all of it. You have to be a well-rounded individual in most areas, and you have to be willing to listen to other people. I hope that he would be that person. I really feel that Ted Cruz would be, again, because he's a constitutionalist, and he's going to abide by the law to the best of his ability. I really do believe that, and I know that some of you out there are saying, well, that's naive or whatever. He's not really that way. Could be, but we could be naive about everyone. And I think the biggest thing right now is that we need to worry about who can beat Hillary, assuming that the voter fraud isn't so thick that no one could beat Hillary at this point. And I found it interesting also because there's a new article out on Hillary Clinton. And Hillary asked the tech companies to help thwart ISIS online. Now, during the Republican debate, Donald Trump basically asked for something very similar, and it was immediately shot down. And when Hillary asked that, she's asking for, again, the tech companies to help thwart ISIS. So essentially what she's saying is to shut down their social media sites and that part of the internet. It's kind of what Donald Trump was asking for. And it gets really dicey in that area because that's very socialist, to control, socialist dictatorship there, to control the internet. And people are very afraid of that. They do that in other countries. China controls what their people hear, and, different countries do the same thing. And we in the United States don't like that, and we're very leery about it. Now, what I think should be done is that the social media sites of people who are known terrorists or really exhibit on their social media that they are terrorists, they should be monitored. Unlike what Jay Johnson wants, the director of Homeland Security doesn't want to be seen as politically incorrect. Oh, for goodness sakes, no. So we don't monitor any social media sites of people who post that they're all in for Allah or want to kill everybody who is not Islamic in belief, that type of thing. I think those people should definitely be monitored. And really, if you want to look at it, it's no different than somebody going on Facebook and threatening to kill somebody. Those people who do that have been arrested for threatening, imminent threat, real threat for somebody. So why should this be any different? And of course, you have to kind of balance that. You can't go after everyone who may just be an idiot and putting things up like that. But let's get real. Let's use common sense again. Let's be rational. You can tell when somebody is doing it just for attention or joking around, and when somebody is being real about it. If you have all these contacts on your Facebook page with people posting about Allah and Islam and killing the infidels, I think there may be a problem there and something that you ought to look into. And Hillary Clinton, of course, is on board with that. She'd probably shut down the internet for everyone, but she left it just to people of the Islamic State or people who were supporting the Islamic State. One thing that she did say, which was just great, in her speech, at one point she mentioned George W. Bush was right. And it said that statement briefly silenced the university audience. Can you imagine that? All of these millennials sitting there thinking that Hillary is the next god, and she happens to mention George W. Bush, who I'm sure they're all sitting there, most of them at least, that look upon him as being the evil Satan and the killer of people and on and on and on, whatever he may be in their minds. And Hillary, who is above all of that, now comes out and says George W. Bush was right. And it's funny because if she were elected to be president of the United States, God forbid that would ever happen, that would be even worse than Obama, you can bet she won't be blaming Obama for anything. It will be George W. Bush. He did everything. He made Obama do what he did. That was wrong. The breaking of the law of the Constitution, breaking of the law, getting Bergdahl out, that was George W. Bush's fault. But right now, when she's trying to run against Bernie Sanders and sort of put Obama in the distance while she surges ahead, she can come out and talk about how great George W. Bush was. And she said she recalled the president's visit to a mosque in Washington days after the September 11, 2001 attacks and his rejection of the concept that the West and the Muslim world were headed to a clash of civilizations. And the article says, then trying to accentuate the contrast between her approach and that of the Republican candidates, she declared, to all Muslim brothers and sisters, this is your country too, and I'm proud to be your fellow American. Well, Hill, not everybody who is Muslim is a citizen of the United States of America. I hate to tell you that. And they're not your fellow American. They would be visitors to the country. They could be illegally in the country. You know, Hillary, unable to vote for you, but perhaps your party will get them to vote, sign them up as one group has already claimed that they will do with the illegal immigrants that are here. just to get back at what Donald Trump said in regards to keeping all Muslims out for a time period. And again, I have to just mention on that, common sense would tell you if and until we can fix our vetting process, which I don't think that we can when it concerns ISIS and those people in the region. As Rand Paul pointed out during the debates, there's no way to vet those people. Who are you going to go to? Ask Assad in Syria. So, did this person, were they ever part of ISIS, or are they good guys, bad guys? Give me a clue on that. There's no way to do that. And Obama knows that he's opening up this country and putting us in danger. He knows that. It's very clear. As I said the other night, I had a guest on, Raymond Ibrahim, and I know most of you probably already heard his show. If you haven't, go back and listen to that show. Go buy his book, Crucified Again. Talks about Christian persecution and what's been going on in the Middle East with Christians forever. And it's been caused by those who believe in Islam. And he has documented incidences, dates, times, what took place, names, everything, so that you can take this information and show people who are sitting here in this country still very much asleep and thinking that everybody is your friend. Everybody is not your friend. Hate to tell you that, hate to burst the bubble, but just because you believe that everybody should be loved and cared for and we should all just get along, kumbaya, it doesn't mean that everybody else believes that. Does it mean that everybody who is Islamic is a terrorist? No. But it means that we risk our lives bringing in people into this country when they have not been vetted and when there's no possible way to vet them. That's just common sense. And if that makes everybody a bigot, a racist, a this and a that, which it doesn't, by the way, then so be it. Whatever you want to think, so be it. Because I believe in common sense. Common sense and being rational is what's caused this country to exist up until now in a very good way. And you may not like some of the things that this country has done, but I guarantee you, if you go and look at anyone in any other country, they have done far worse than this country ever thought about doing. And if you want to go and look at things, and if you really want to look at things, like I said, go get the book Crucified Again, and you will see the policy in the Middle East. And you will see that in our closest ally, Saudi Arabia, Christians are not allowed to have churches there to preach the gospel or anything else. They got rid of the Christian problem because they don't allow Christianity to be taught within the country. That's our closest ally, people, our closest ally. And these are the people who won't take the Muslims that we're bringing and want to bring into this country from the Syrian refugees. They won't take them. And again, people have pointed out, why remove these people from their culture, from the Middle East? Why do you need to do that? Why do you need to take them to Europe? Why do you need to take them to America? Why do you need to take them anywhere out of their own country? There are places in the Middle East that they could be protected. There's also an ability for the United States to go in and get rid of ISIS, and then there won't be a problem. But we're not doing that. And why aren't we doing that? Because it does not fit the agenda. That's why. The United States and even Russia could have gone in and wiped out ISIS in Iraq and Syria long before now. And tell me again, why is it that we have to go back into Iraq and take over what we allowed to be taken over when we left in Iraq? The city with Kabul that fell, that we allowed it to fall, and now we're going to go back in and retake it? Why? Why are we doing that? You know why? It's a distraction. It's like, say, oh, look at us. We're going in and we're taking over ISIS. When the truth of the matter is we're not doing anything. Even Glenn Beck pointed out that we're in a proxy war. Turkey and the United States against Iran and Russia. And this is a proxy war. ISIS is a way for us to have a proxy war. And he pointed out that where the bombings are occurring, it's occurring on places where our United States armed the rebels in Syria. That's where they're bombing. They're killing the Syrian rebels that we armed. That's what's happening. They're not bombing anywhere where it's significant to get rid of ISIS. Russia and the United States are not in agreement as to what should be done. The United States wants Assad out. Russia wants to keep Assad in. So you're not going to have a happy ending here. It's not going to occur. In America, we're just going to continue to be told, oh, yes, we're fighting ISIS. We're doing everything we can. That was my John Kerry impersonation, in case you couldn't tell. So we're just going to continue to be lied to. Things are going to continue to happen. Other threats are going to continue in the United States. But don't worry, Obama's got it all under control. Yeah, he's got it under control for his agenda, but not for you and me, not for our safety. Just the other day, you may recall, in Los Angeles, they closed down the entire school district. I think it was over like 1,000 schools in the district because there was an email that indicated there was a bomb threat. And what I had heard, in a backpack. Well, in a backpack and that many kids, you can never find anything that you're looking for because it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. It would have been impossible for them to find anything. And apparently New York got the same email, but New York said, you know what, I don't even really care. We're not going to fall for this hoax. We know it's a hoax, so let's just go about our business. We're going to be fine. Now, you can criticize L.A. and say they shouldn't have closed down the school district, but I'll guarantee you one thing. If even one child had stubbed their toe on something that might have looked like a bomb or something involved with that hoax that came through, you would have had parents in that school district suing that school district out of existence. And I tell you why. New York didn't have an attack in Santa Barbara, which is right next to L.A., a distance away, but relatively close. They didn't have an occurrence that happened about a week or so ago that would cause everybody to say, why in the world, when you knew about San Bernardino, did you not close the schools in L.A. and you put our kids at risk? So like it or not, I think Los Angeles had to do what they did. Because a bomb-sniffing dog would have taken 5 days to go through one school, that the size of one school, and looking at every backpack, every locker. I mean, it would have been impossible. I think you're going to see more things like this occurring because what would be better than to scare parents and adults around the world, but to go after the children or potentially say that you're going after the children. And don't think that ISIS wouldn't be above doing that. I hope people get their heads out of the sand long enough to know that ISIS doesn't love your children and that they would go after your children if they could. And they're not looking to coexist with you. And in fact, following the LA email hoax and the New York email hoax, there have been 2 Southwest Florida schools in Lee County evacuated after bomb threats were found in bathrooms. It's going to happen all over. It really, really is. Again, what would make you more on edge than to know that your children might be impacted or in harm's way? So if you're one of those people who think all these Syrian refugees should come here and that Donald Trump is just being a racist because he won't let them in, remember that the next time you panic when somebody says there's a bomb threat or something going on at your child's school. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. If you want to keep the country protected, you're going to have to protect the country. And you do that by not allowing people in here that could harm the country, and by finding those people that are already here that want to harm this country and getting them out, or getting them jailed or whatever the case may be. And I'm not talking about putting innocent people in jail. I'm talking about arresting people that are committing criminal acts. We have to just wake up. We have to be real about this. Put your political correctness aside. Leave it at the door. Protect yourself. Protect your children. Protect America. And if that offends anyone, too bad. Now, moving on. I found an article in the Daily Beast. I don't ever go to the Daily Beast, but I had to this time because it's like one of those things where you see the left start to eat their young, where, for example, like in the universities now, the Black Lives Matter people are turning on the professors that taught them how to be so progressive and liberal. The same thing with the Daily Beast. When they turn on someone, it's just great to see. It really, you could buy tickets to it because it's just so fun to watch. You want everybody to participate and be there and see it. It's about time that they reap what they sow, and it's coming back to haunt them. Now, the article says, where did all the money Shaun King raised for Black Lives go? I don't know if you know who Shaun King is, but he's one of those people that he's like Rachel Dolezal. Shaun is white, but he wants you to believe that he's black. Now, I'll say allegedly, just to give him the benefit of the doubt, but everybody says that he's white. I think parents say that he's white. Brothers, siblings, say he's white, but Shaun says he's black, so okay. The article starts out, Shaun King is very good at raising money in support of black lives, and one of those lives might be his own. Oh, I just love it. Don't you just love that? It gets better. King, one of the most visible faces of the Black Lives Matter movement, and no stranger to controversy, the controversy being that he's white but claims he's black, is now beating back accusations that he has misappropriated or mismanaged charitable funds. Now we can't assume anything. Maybe he's gone to Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and maybe they have taught him how to handle charitable funds. Because let's face it, those two, Sharpton and Jackson, they are pros at knowing how to handle charitable funds and how to raise money for, let's say, their causes. Now, King collected millions of dollars for everyone from Haitian orphans to the families of black men and children killed by police across America. Some of that money went to survivors or victims' families, but much of the largest either went into failed projects, King's own pockets, or is unaccounted for. Now, King says it's just, and he says the word, but I'll just give you the initials. It's just BS, King told the Daily Beast on Tuesday after allegations were lobbed against him by members of his own movement. No. See, it isn't so. People need to understand that failure is not fraud. So now Shaun is telling us he's a failure. What he's tried to do hasn't worked. It's failed. But that doesn't mean that he's trying to defraud anyone. So, for example, if you and I aren't honest when we're, let's say, filling out our IRS tax forms, that doesn't mean we're doing anything fraudulent. We just failed at doing it right. Can't you relate to Shaun? The former mega church pastor turned citizen journalist. Whoa. I mean, that says a lot right there, doesn't it? Tells you that you should know who your church leaders are before you turn over your hard-earned cash to that particular church. The former mega church pastor turned citizen journalist has leveraged heavy doses of charisma into 218,000 Twitter followers and a column at the New York Daily News to chronicle instances of suspected injustices carried out by police in predominantly non-white communities. King counts a flurry of A-list celebrities and largely left-leaning politicians among his most ardent fans. Now, there's a shock, huh? They follow his Twitter timeline for the latest news, whether it's a video of a cop shooting an unarmed black boy or a school resource officer accused of brutalizing a teenager. I wonder if Shaun ever shows the other videos of the opposite occurring. You know, like when they had a black male in the classroom, a teenager who took down his 60-something-year-old white teacher and knocked him down onto the floor. I don't know. I don't think I saw that video on Shaun's website, but I can't really say for sure. Like so many others, I know King only through the lens of social media. So that means, here we go. Daily Beast is even starting to back away from him. And they put the words "no" in quotes. So I quote unquote know King. Because now we don't want to know him. Things are starting to turn, so we don't really know him. I have watched him grow in prominence and struggle. There's always a struggle. To balance that newfound fame, there is nothing enviable about the white-hot glare of those who are devoted to your personal destruction on a daily basis. Wow. And you can see why people wanted to perhaps destroy someone who, I don't know, potentially is lying, potentially is not who they say they are. Again, allegedly. His focus on race and inequality has earned him the wrath of conservative bloggers and Fox News anchor Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, maybe because what he has been talking about could be one-sided. Again, couldn't possibly be lies. I have at times defended him against some of the most vicious attacks and at others pulled his coattail when I thought some counsel could help. Oh, that's so great. That's the guy who wrote this article. Isn't that nice? To be honest, I have long been aware of the suspicions some harbor about how he manages charitable donations. Oh, so you knew something? Wait a minute. See something, say something? Does that apply here? Apparently not. I have groused privately about the veracity of some of his reporting and whether his body of writing met the publishing standards that so many in this business work under, like the people at the Daily Beast. I heard the whispers, the backroom talk from people who did not want to be seen as racist or acting like crabs in the barrel for criticizing King. Oh, no. Again, you don't want to be called a racist, especially against somebody who's probably a white guy, right? But as long as he's black, we just will stay quiet. But if he turns white, we're going to come out, maybe even write an article in the Daily Beast about it, start backing away and say, I don't really know this guy, and I could see all this stuff happening, but I didn't want to say anything. What do you think about Shaun King? The conversation almost invariably opens. I want to be fair, I generally respond. People haven't always been fair to me. Oh my gosh. So there we go. We have someone who, he understands the struggle of Shaun King, this either black or white person, who's just had a tough road, and he understands the struggle. Certainly King is sometimes the first to break a story nationally, and a mention in his timeline all but guarantees that a cable news producer will see it. Well, all the more reason to ride around in his coattails, right? But now that things are kind of breaking down a little bit here, we're letting go of the coattails. All too often, he is the only voice in the discourse that refuses to let go when the news cameras have packed up and gone home, and no one else is left to care but a grieving family and its lawyers. His dogged approach to following the minutia of any given case has netted him a reputation for being vigilant, even if the early facts, as he spells them out, later fall apart. So, in other words, even if he gets it wrong, he was there in the beginning. So we have to give him credit. He's a great guy, wonderful guy. Why wouldn't anybody believe him? Then, too, even though King has not been among the thousands of protesters who organized and participated in a public demonstration across the country or lobbied policymakers in recent years, he's widely regarded by media outlets as a leader in the Black Lives Matter movement. For better or worse, it is that unofficial position, that keeps him in the spotlight and has drawn the ire of several frontline black activists who often place themselves in harm's way. So, in other words, he's kind of like a Jesse Jackson and an Al Sharpton. They go out. They may be seen. They're kind of the ones in front of the camera. They don't necessarily go out and march and put themselves in harm's way, but they're the visible ones, the ones who get all the attention, the ones who, when people put something on their timeline, they're sure to get a mention. Guys like that. Notwithstanding the racially charged attacks that come almost hourly and malicious accusations about his ethnicity. Oh my gosh. People are attacking his ethnicity. How could they do that? How could they have done that to Rachel Dolezal, who claimed to be black when she was actually white? People are so vicious. It's amazing. They want the truth. Wow. Whew. Several right-leaning news sites, including Breitbart and the Daily Caller, have openly interrogated that record, and there has been some reporting in national publications such as the Washington Post. However, fueled in part by a public spat Sunday night with other Black Lives Matter activists, those embers are now alight again. Documentation and actual figures are difficult to pin down, but the husband and father of 5 claims to have raised nearly $500,000 on behalf of families affected by police violence or systemic racism. But an examination of public records, published articles, and public statements by King and others associated with his work leave more questions than answers. I don't even want to go any further. I mean, I love these articles by the people on the left. We love you as long as you're doing what we want you to do. We're not even going to check and find out what your background really is, what you're really doing. We see something, we're not going to say something. We don't want to be racist, even though you may not be black, and it would be okay if you were white to say something about you, because that's our world of political correctness these days. But when something starts happening, then we've got to write an article. We've got to talk about how we really believed you. We didn't really know you. We're so sorry that we got that wrong. We're so sorry that you may have lied to us. We're so sorry that we don't even know how much you've really raised, and there's some questions about that. But, have a nice life, Shaun. We'll see you later. And that's where it's going to go. And not until, I'm sure, that Shaun has put up a great fight about how all of this is just lies because of the work that he does and because he's a black man. Prepare yourselves for that to happen. We see this all the time lately. Nobody wants to tell the truth, just like Rachel Dolezal. And then when she does tell the truth, finally, when she's been outed by everyone, then her next move is to go and say, well, why does Caitlyn Jenner get to be who she is, but I can't be a black woman? Probably because you may not like what Caitlyn Jenner did or what she's doing, and the fact that she still has, genetically, she still has male parts. At least she didn't come out and say, I'm a total female, I was born a female, this is who I am. Like Rachel, who claimed, I think, to have been a black woman, from birth. There's a little bit of difference here, although it gets murky. I agree, but Rachel, you're white, okay? I mean, you are. Learn to live with that and move on. And if it turns out that Shaun needs to live with some things that he's done, well, that's what it's going to be, and people are just going to continue to back away from him until he's no longer significant. Again, these people eventually just start eating their own. And the lies get brought up and they get brought out and people turn on them. There's another story that just recently came in about, it's a very odd story. It doesn't really fit with what's going on and who Americans are. So I don't know if it's terror related or just someone who's mentally ill, but I wanted to let you hear of this information. I think it's really important for us to know that these things are going on. Again, it could be that it has no connection at all to terrorism within our country, but it's certainly something that should be mentioned on mainstream media, typically isn't, and something that I want you to be aware of. Now, recently, a teenager who is an exchange student from China was slashed in the face while walking to school. The 16-year-old girl was walking eastbound on 13th Avenue in College Point, and this is in Queens, New York, when an unidentified attacker groped her before slicing her 2 times in the face with a sharp object, cutting her from the ear to the throat. He said nothing to the girl before the attack and then fled on foot, according to the police. And they said that the attacker was wearing a surgical mask and gloves. Again, not your typical attack for somebody who is robbing a person or sexually assaulting them, but the extra added surgical mask and gloves, obviously something that stands out. Again, may have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism, but we should be aware nonetheless of what's going on. Now, the victim has been in the country for 8 months, and last I heard they're expecting to come out with information, more details on the attack itself. And finally, again, kind of buried within news that is not mainstream media, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation said that the July attack of military facilities in Chattanooga, now you remember that in Chattanooga, when this person came by and attacked a recruitment center in one area and then went to another center and killed all of these people in there, that the Chattanooga shooting was inspired by terrorist organization propaganda. We're investigating Chattanooga from the beginning, and we've concluded that Chattanooga killer was inspired by a foreign terrorist organization's propaganda. This is the first time that the FBI director has attributed any sort of motive to the attacks believed to have been conducted by Muhammad Yusuf Abdulaziz. The FBI and other law enforcement say that the 24-year-old man born in Kuwait killed 4 U.S. Marines and 1 sailor when he opened fire on a National Guard recruitment center and a Navy Reserve facility in July. Now, this is different than when he came there in November and said that, according to the FBI, the agency would maybe never know what the motive was. But now he's saying the way the agency investigates sometimes makes it necessary to keep information secret. But in the days following the attack, you may remember when Vice President Joe Biden called the shooter a perverted jihadist during a memorial service in Chattanooga for the victims. The FBI director went on to say, "To my mind, there is no doubt the Chattanooga shooter was inspired and motivated by foreign terrorist organization propaganda. We've investigated it from the beginning as a foreign terrorist case." Really? Because I never heard Obama say that. Maybe I missed something, but I don't remember him coming out and saying there's a possibility this was from a terrorist organization or somehow terror related. I don't recall him saying too much of anything. Now, the Tennessee lawmakers have offered several legislative responses in the wake of the attacks. Certain Guard members are now allowed to carry weapons on military property, which they should have been all along. One thing is very clear. This administration is not telling us everything. They are downplaying everything in regards to San Bernardino shooting and past shootings, especially after San Bernardino when the Obama administration supposedly told everybody to kind of like downplay everything, and that's why California didn't come out right away and say that they thought it was terrorism. So we have to stay vigilant. We're the ones now that have to take care of ourselves because obviously our government has not been telling us the truth and they're not going to be telling us the truth. It's just the way it is. It's factual. It's common sense. It's rational. We have to return to that. I've been speaking about it for a long time now. So take care of yourselves. Be vigilant. I think we really are at a point in time where we're going to have to be able to take care of ourselves and to take care of our neighbors. We're there, folks. We really are there. We can no longer depend upon the government to be there to help us when they won't even tell us the facts about what's really going on. So until next time, I hope that you will have a great week. I hope that you take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. God bless you. I'll see you again next week.